When we think about psychological safety in the design process, we typically think about how it relates to things like idea generation or if a team member is willing to share a novel idea. But psychological safety is also an important factor as a project nears a conclusion and your team works on final project deliverables like prototyping, writing the final report, and completing the final presentation. As you may recall, psychological safety is the shared belief that your team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. In other words, it's a belief that you won't be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or admitting mistakes. So, why is psychological safety important in the later stages of the design process as your team nears the finish line? Well, one of the problems we see most often in engineering design student teams is that people feel their team members aren't pulling their weight, per se, in terms of completing the final communication deliverables. They aren't showing up to the meetings, they aren't meeting deadlines, or the team members are not happy with the quality of the work being produced. Rather than addressing the problem, the team members get angry and stressed, and the team performance suffers. This normally comes out at the end of the project in terms of peer review performance evaluations, but no team resolution is ever made. So how do we stop this downward spiral? How do we foster psychological safety on your team and make sure that your team not only arrives at great project deliverables, but does so in a psychologically safe way? Well, the first step is to remember that building psychological safety does not mean that everybody is nice all the time. It means that you embrace the conflict and you speak up, knowing that your team has your back and you have their back. So, how do you facilitate psychological safety as you head to the project goal line? With the 4 lenses of psychological safety, of course. During today's class, you will assign the 4 roles to your team members, making sure that each team member picks a lens they have never used before. If you are assigned the role of turn-taking equalizer for the end of the project, it is your job to make sure that each team member is contributing equally to the final project deliverables and that on discussions around these deliverables. If you notice a team member is not participating in team meetings, not responding to texts or emails, your goal is to connect with them one-on-one by sending a personal private message to understand why they are not participating and what you can do to help them feel more comfortable. You're also responsible for actively involving people during team meetings when they're not speaking up. If you're assigned the role of point of view shifter, you're responsible for getting alternate perspectives on the project deliverables. This lens is important during the final stages of the design process because it makes sure your team is considering both critical and supportive views of your final project deliverables. If your team is only sharing positive views, you could ask things like, who has a different perspective, or what are we missing? Or if you notice a team member is being overly critical, you could ask, what are some good aspects of this work? Or how can we make this idea work? If you're assigned the role of affirmation advocate, your goal is to make sure you listen to, understand, and show genuine interest in comments, affirming every member's contribution in some way. You want to make sure you try to avoid total silence and say things like, that was a good point, or thank you so much for bringing that up. Finally, if you're assigned the role of creativity promoter, your goal is to ask questions that help your team continue to support creativity. In the final stage of the design process, this may include helping prototype your idea in a creative way, helping include creative figures or illustrations in your final report or final presentation. This could include asking questions like, how could we change our prototype to more creatively show how it works? Or what type of figures would be more engaging to our audience? I hope this video has helped you understand why psychological safety is important in the final stages of the design process and how you can foster psychological safety using the 4 lenses. Now, take a moment and assign each team member on your team one of these lenses for today's activities. Then go support psychological safety in the final stages of your project.